showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome back to a very special episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Today marks the 4-year anniversary, or close to the 4-year anniversary, of when this podcast was founded by Christopher Holifield.
Oh, I don't know if gosh, that is just such a fancy introduction, Krissie.
It is?
It makes me sound all special.
You're such a
just a dude.
No, well, you're a smart dude.
I don't know about that.
You are just
Look what I've created.
It's amazing what you've created. And this is what I want to ask you about. We're going to just...
Are we going to... Okay, so let me chat for a minute here.
Okay.
Before I know you gave a really great introduction there. I asked you, Krissie, okay, this is the thing. I feel like so many people don't really know all the ins and outs of this podcast.
Right.
They see me online. I might make a post or a silly comment or something. And actually, to be honest with you, I don't think my silly side really even shows a lot online. But I put these podcasts out week after week, but a lot of people don't really know the story. They don't know the history. They don't know really the ins and outs. And that's where I'm like, you know what? Okay, this is 4 years. Mm-hmm. 4 years. That's a big milestone.
Huge.
And I asked you, I said, Krissie, let's sit down and chat. Mm-hmm. Write up some questions that you think people would want to find out about. And let's just really get open and raw. And that's what I'm hoping to do. This is a special episode. This is going to be released on a day that from its normal weekly routine. No sponsors, no BS. We're putting this out there.
Yeah, just a conversation.
And just a conversation. And so it's a little different. So I don't know. I mean, thank you so much, Krissie, for doing this. Because I could sit here and talk in the microphone myself, but I need you to be able to do it. So
sometimes I like to sit and talk to myself, but today's not that day.
Where are we starting?
Where are we starting? Today, so you've been interviewed a few times before, and you have an amazing backstory. You've traveled the U.S., you created zines way back in the day. You started a small record company at one point, right?
Yeah, I tried. I did one record, one 7-inch record, like a 45.
Yeah.
Of a band out of Seattle. I mean, I was like 17.
Yeah.
17, 18 years old.
What 17-year-old does that?
Well, this guy.
But you've always been a forward thinker, and you've always been an entrepreneur. And that really shows with the fact that you've put 4 years into building up Salt Lake and the people in it. I'd like to encourage listeners to listen to the previous interviews you've done with Paul Duane of The Paul Duane Show and Richie T. Stedman on episode 128 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. They really dug into your origin story, your childhood, some of your family. But today I'd really like to focus on the last 4 years, really the origin of the podcast and your personal journey while creating the podcast. Let's talk a little bit about your iPhone.
About the iPhone.
A little bit about your iPhone. A little over 4 years ago, you grabbed your iPhone and you started organizing Instawalks.
Oh gosh!
Right?
That was a. Do you want me to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
So, I got a smartphone and I got an iPhone, and I believe I downloaded Instagram. I've shared this story on other podcasts. So, and I for some reason my mind's going blank right now. But at the time, it was, previous life, I was married, and I would help my ex-wife, at that time it was my wife, set up at farmers markets and other events around Salt Lake City. And a lot of times she would tell me, okay, go get lost because girls are coming here to try stuff on. And if there's a guy sitting here, they're not going to want to try on clothes.
That's a little creepy.
And so it made sense. But, at the time we didn't live downtown. So I didn't want to go home and come back and stuff. So I would go on these adventures around Salt Lake City. And at that time, I really wasn't even very familiar with Salt Lake City as I am today. And I would just start walking around and I would start taking pictures of graffiti and buildings and even the texture on bricks. And I really found myself kind of fascinated with the different angles of the architecture here and the different, signage and old signage and some of the graffiti here in Salt Lake City. And I started posting them on Instagram and I got this amazing response from people being like, wow, we've never seen Salt Lake City from this angle, from this set of eyes. And And I started getting more and more followers. You know, it was like people were telling people to follow me, follow this guy. And it was really cool.
That's awesome.
You know, I was like, wow, this is really cool that I'm bringing something, something different to the table. You know, at that time, if you searched Instagram, you saw a lot of temples, a lot of Mormon temples, a lot of families, a lot of babies. And so I was bringing something new. I mean, Instagram's a different beast today. You know, it's a very much different beast. And so I really kind of got lost not lost, but very ingrained in the Instagram community. I started making little friends on Instagram and communicating with other Instagrammers. And I noticed that in other cities, they were doing what was called Insta walks, okay, where people would get together and just walk through different areas of the city and take pictures. And it would build community. It would build friendships. It would build, this togetherness. And it seemed so rad. And I wanted to bring that to Salt Lake City, but I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I've never set anything like this up.
Oh, yeah.
So where do I start? And I remember this other girl, Heather. I forgot her last name, but she reached out to me somehow. I can't really remember how. And she said somehow she found out that I wanted to do one of these.
Yeah.
And so she said, let's meet up at a coffee shop. It was Sugar House Coffee, actually. I remember it very well. And we got together and we started chatting about putting together an Insta walk. And okay, where should we do it? We did it, okay, let's meet up at the Gallivan Center and we met up there and
how did you spread the word?
Through Instagram.
Okay. Through
Instagram. And I think my Twitter followers, I mean, I built up a Twitter audience because I dabbled in a little comedy myself, believe it or not. I used to post really funny tweets.
And they are really funny.
And so I got noticed by a lot of comedians.
Yeah.
I still brag about this day that Jim Gaffigan follows me on Twitter.
That's a worthy brag.
He listens to the podcast. I want to believe it. Okay. So anyways, we organized the first ever Insta walk. And this is actually, the first time I met people like Mark Benson. He was on the podcast with Zhao. Great friendship there. I want to, gosh, I know other people came out I think Kat Martin even came out to the first Insta walk. Yeah. I want to think she did, but a lot of people, it was a great turnout. People came. And so everybody had a lot of fun. A lot of people said, okay, this either could be a lot of fun or it could be really lame. We didn't know. Yeah. So we walked around the city and we planned a meeting spot to meet at the end and grabbed a beer and then looked through photos. And so we started organizing these every month. Okay.
That is cool.
And this, over the summertime. And at this time, I don't know do you want me to kind of get into how the podcast started? Or what?
That's
I'm jumping around.
Oh,
here,
no,
probably.
That's great. Oh, and that's what I think is so interesting. You did all of this building the community of Salt Lake with Insta walks, and then you took your same iPhone and you decided to start a podcast with it.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like that.
Well, and I want to know, where was the transition? What was the moment you're like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast?
So other people, I dabbled in blogging as well. I had like dropdeadchris.com registered. That was kind of for some reason, because I used to do an online vintage clothing company selling clothes on eBay, and that was Drop Dead Vintage. Horrible name, I know it. I mean,
it's so emo.
It really was. So I was Drop Dead Chris, and so I dabbled in blogging, and it never really, I never could get really passionate about it.
Yeah.
And so there was a handful of people that really said, you need to try podcasting now. So they put that, that bug in my ear.
Yeah.
And at that time, I mean, this was back in, I want to say even 2010, 2011. And at that time, I knew the guys from Geek Show, and we would go to barbecues and get-togethers with them. And I would just see the fun they had.
Yeah.
I mean, they would all get together, and I was like, man, they have so much fun talking about this podcast. And I was listening to podcasts like This American Life, kind of some of those really beginning podcasts, and I enjoyed talk radio. I always enjoyed the medium of chatting and radio like that. And I liked music, but I was looking for something else other than music.
Right.
Because I was getting so burned out of music.
Yeah, music's great, but it doesn't make you think. It doesn't provoke a lot of internal conversation.
So I thought about, I want to do a podcast. but what do I do it about?
Yeah.
You know, Salt Lake City doesn't have, I mean, well, today, I mean, this was over 4 years ago.
Yeah.
We didn't have a ton of touring comedians coming through here. We didn't have a ton of touring bands. We didn't have this, you know, huge amount of that, at least that I knew of.
Yeah.
Today, I feel like we do.
Yeah, it seems like it was a pretty different place.
It really was.
Even 4 years ago.
But again, maybe it was just because I didn't really know about all that. So I was like, well, what if I was actually at a farmer's market helping my ex-wife set up her booth. And I was looking around, and I would do this week after week. And I just was so fascinated by all these people that would set up at our markets and set up at the events. And I was like, man, you know, a lot of these people, they work day jobs. Mm-hmm. Then they come in and they put, you know, another 6-8 hours at night into their other job of whatever they make, whether it's bar soap or something out of wood or earrings or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, I got to thinking, I'm like, this would be amazing to sit down and chat and find out their story. All right. Plus, I was looking around. I found this like little mic attachment that you can put into your iPhone. And I was like, I could just walk around Salt Lake and go into these businesses and chat with people.
Just talk to people.
Yeah, because everybody wants to talk.
It's easy.
Everybody. Well, no.
Did you think it would be easy?
A lot easier than it was in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And so I pitched the idea to Suzanne, my ex-wife, and she thought it was great.
Yeah.
She really did. She thought that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. You know, I pitched it to a few other people and they weren't really negative about it, but they made it feel like, oh, that will never take off. A few people were like, you know, not that many people in Salt Lake City listen to podcasts.
That's very true.
And B, not a lot of people listen to podcasts in general.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there was a little bit of that, like, hesitancy. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, I didn't listen to a ton of podcasts at that time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people didn't 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't as many 4 years ago.
Exactly.
There was today.
There wasn't the amount or the diversity that you have now.
So I did a lot of searching. I couldn't really find a lot of local podcasts. Mm-hmm. I found a couple of them, but I listened to a lot of comedian interview podcasts. And so the long form interviews, you know, trying to get in depth with somebody, finding out their struggles, finding out their motivations. That's what really stuck with me. So to back up a little bit, am I just taking control of the microphone?
Oh, no. We're here to hear the story.
Okay. So I feel like I'm just talking.
You have a lot to talk about.
And so I can't even really fully remember. Was it Urban Vintage, I think, was the first... Well, the first interview was with Sorry Clementine, my wife at the time, my ex-wife now.
Right.
She seemed like the most, well, why not? I mean,
right. She's one of those people out there doing things.
It made sense. I mean, it was easy. We could do it right in our duplex. And I thought that came out pretty good.
Yeah.
The quality of it wasn't horrible. You know,
you could listen to it.
My interviewing skills needed a little bit of work, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, I mean, that's to be expected.
Exactly. So I thought that came out pretty good. I was like, that's pretty good, you know? I can do this. So I can't remember how I got a hold of it. If I just started sending a lot of messages, I just got into messaging mode.
Yeah.
I would send people messages saying, hey, do you want to come on this podcast? And, I didn't really get a whole lot of response. Again, a lot of people didn't know what a podcast was. But Urban Vintage... I want to say he responded, and the thing is again, I didn't really know what I was doing, so I think he thought we were just going to meet up or something like that. So I went down to his shop. He had this shop down on 300 South Broadway, right there. I want to say it's in the same building where the People's Coffee is.
Okay.
Right now, the People's Choice, People's Coffee, right there on 300 South, right next to it's a bunch of shops right down there. Went into his shop. And I was just like, hey, can we start recording this interview? I mean, his shop is open, everything.
Oh, really?
Little did I know that's probably not the best idea. So we start recording.
Right.
And he's like, well, if a customer comes in, I kind of have to go.
Yeah.
And so we kept getting interrupted by customers. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I mean, the interview, I haven't listened to it for a while. I don't know if you listened to it, Krissie.
I listened to it maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah. So at that moment, I realized, well, we can't really do it in shops while they're open.
Yeah. You kind of figured out that they have to have set aside time to be able to just record
to just sit down and focus.
Yeah.
Even though there was a part of me, I really wanted to get the ambiance of the store. I was like, okay, this will make good quality. Because again, I was listening to podcasts like This American Life, and they make it sound all glamorous with all the bells and all the the traffic and all
noise.
that. But I think most of that noise is BS. I really don't think they're recording it in city.
It's added on.
So, anyways, I realized I forgot the food truck. That was I can't remember a lot of those first few years, or first few episodes, excuse me, kind of blur together. Mm-hmm. But like the next interview, I went to their house, and I had my iPhone set up, and one guy's on one side of the room and another guy's on another side of the room, and I thought I'm fucking punk rock here, like I'm like. It doesn't matter if the audio quality is any good.
Exactly.
This is just an interview. This is grit, man. It doesn't matter if it's any good.
You're just out there doing it.
And so I was like kind of that way, like, there's all these high quality corporate podcasts out there. I don't want to sound like that.
You're standing up to the man.
Exactly.
Yep.
So there was a part of me that was proud that I was recording it with my iPhone. You know what I mean? Like I didn't care if the quality. And I don't know, if something hit me, I realized that maybe I need to step my quality up a little bit, and I got a microphone, and it's funny because it's Daisy and the Moonshines was, I want to say, episode 4. They were the first band, and we had one microphone. It's the same. It's actually probably the same microphone that I'm using right now. And the whole band, we got around there, and so basically, to make a long story short, I started realizing that I needed to piece together audio equipment.
You need to get actual equipment.
But again, it was tough because I'm reaching into my own pocket.
Yep. Paying
for everything. And the thing is I still work where I work at now. It's not the most amazing paying job. Mm-hmm. So it was tough because it was like, well, I don't know. Do I want to stick? I didn't even know if I was going to stick with podcasting.
Right. And audio equipment, it's kind of, you have to be dedicated.
You really do.
It's a pretty good chunk of money.
So I was like, well, okay, I'll buy one microphone. See if I'll keep doing it. And I'll plug that microphone into my laptop. And so I would drag my laptop around everywhere we recorded.
Yeah.
I would drag it around. So my old laptop was getting a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
And so,
where did you did you have a concept of where the podcast would go years from now, back then?
Well, yes and no. Yes, I did.
How has it compared to where you actually are? Like what's actually happened?
That's an interesting question because I knew I wanted to create something large with it. Mm-hmm. Okay, I knew I wanted to. I look at these other publications out there. There's magazines like Slug, City Weekly, and they're great. I love them to death. I mean, they've been great supports of the podcast.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, these guys cover all the written interviews and written content. Uh-huh. I said, why can't I be the podcast content?
Yeah.
Kind of be this big hub. I felt like there's enough people out there that would want to listen and this content. And I did. I wanted to make something large.
Yeah.
I wanted to make something bigger than myself.
Exactly.
Because that's the kind of person I am, is I want to leave something behind when I die.
Well, and the thing that I love about you that is not relevant to almost any other media outlet is that something that you makes you unique and stand out is that you're doing this to build community. You want to create community and bring people together and really like your goal is to lift everyone else around you up.
Goes back to the Insta walks. I wanted to build community. I wanted to build, I wanted to, going way back. And if you listen to the interview with Richie T on episode 128, I feel like that kind of gives people a good layout of my life. I ran away to Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. I used to run with the straight edge crowd. And when I came back to Utah, I realized, I might as well make something of this place. I might as well enjoy it here, not fight it, not hate it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to build a community. I wanted to find out other like-minded people that were out there.
And make it the place that you want to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so you chose to showcase the counterculture in Salt Lake and really, build a community of people who are like-minded. What were your initial obstacles with that? And like, what kept you motivated to overcome them?
So my initial obstacles were even how to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never done another podcast.
And you're 100% self-taught.
Absolutely.
There weren't resources.
Well, yeah, there were online. There were a few podcasts out there. School of Podcasting. I still listen to this. I actually got to meet Dave Jackson when we went to Chicago in July. So that was really cool. I mean, listening to his shows really helped me out. Listening to a lot of podcasts. I was very observant when they would talk about, like, you would hear... Sometimes you would hear about the units that they recorded with. I didn't realize. I was like, I start listening to a podcast and I'd be like, man, it sounds like they're recording in a hotel room, but the quality is so good. What are they using?
Yeah.
What product are they using? Then I find out about the Zoom recorders and I find out.
Which you introduced me to.
Yeah. Hey, they're portable. The quality sounds great.
Yeah.
You get a few microphones, you plug them in. I mean, you can go with the setup that we're recording on right now. I can go anywhere.
Yeah,
and it's running off of batteries. It's amazing. Podcasting is brilliant. But I feel like I've come so far, and so I would listen to the School of Podcasting, the Podcast Answer Man, and I want to say I found some communities online or whatever, but I didn't really know a lot.
Right.
And see, this is all a blur. And so there was a guy there was a podcast I stumbled upon, The Mediocre Show.
Oh yeah,
which
great show.
A lot of people that listen to this show listen to Mediocre Show, but I started communicating with Mike Pilot, who was one of the co-hosts on The Mediocre Show.
Yeah, and
we started communicating through Twitter. I found a lot of people through Twitter, a lot of contacts through Twitter. So we started tweeting at each other and we started, building this friendship up. And he did a podcast somewhere in the timeline. I don't remember at what time frame, but he did a podcast called Obviously Oblivious. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And he interviewed a lot of people in Salt Lake as well in that episode. So we started chatting. And he gave me a lot of tips and a lot of help and a lot of, do this on a podcast, do this, you should check this out. So I looked up to him.
Yeah.
I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Because I figured he knew what he was doing. And I want to say that was actually the first podcast I was on, was his Obviously Oblivious. If people really want to go
into. As an interviewee.
Mike interviewed me. It was via phone. But that was the first podcast that I was on. And I felt like I was on top of the world. I made it. I was successful. Yeah. I was then going to be the largest podcast in the world. I was going to take over the world because
that's how it works, right?
Everybody was going to then listen to I Am Salt Lake.
Yep.
And, so I'm sure it brought some new listeners. And I slowly saw my listenership grow and grow and grow. And my friendship with Eric, Mike. Mike at this time continued to grow. I didn't communicate a lot with Eric from Mediocre Show.
He was
at this
the other
time.
Mediocre Show.
Yeah, Eric is the main host of Mediocre Show and the founder. Anyway, so we started Mike at this time. I was talking about doing live podcasts and live streaming. I thought that would be fun. And
at the very beginning?
At the very beginning.
Oh, wow.
I thought that would be really fun to do. Because I always thought, for some reason, a call-in show would be fun, right?
Well, and that's kind of ahead of the time. I mean, now we actually have like the capability to do that
through
easily.
Facebook. This was all going to be audio streaming.
Okay.
Like I was just going to stream it. Like I was thinking this would be really fun to do via audio, not necessarily
not
video.
Okay.
And so at that time they were putting together the Mediocre Radio Network. Okay. And Mike invited me. He ran it past Eric, and I found out Eric was a big fan of I Am Salt Lake. And at this time I was like, Eric tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He
knows who I am.
Yeah. He even knows who I am. I mean, he likes my podcast. He listens, and then you get nervous because you're like, oh my gosh, they listen. And
then
you get
every
really
time
nervous.
You record.
And every time you record, all you can think about is their face staring back at you and saying,
man.
you suck. No. So the Mediocre Radio Network launched, and I'm probably really screwing up the timeline here. I apologize. There's probably people listening, but again, the last 4 years have been a little bit of a blur.
Yeah.
So, this was a really cool deal. I mean, because there were some other really big, Geek Show got on the Mediocre Radio Network.
That's right.
And the Mediocre Show was on the Mediocre. Well, obviously they were. There were other podcasts on there. My mind is blank.
It was a pretty well connected network of shows.
It was, and so they were giving me a lot of support, and so that really built the audience of I Am Salt Lake up. I kept getting more and more listeners, more and more downloads.
Mediocre Show is such a great supportive show.
They Eric and well, Mike. I mean, again, Mike. I haven't been the best with staying in touch with Mike, and it hurts my heart that
it's hard over.
It's just hard over time.
Yeah.
To stay in touch with everybody. But yeah, all those guys.
Yeah, and they're a great show. They're entertaining.
Yeah, Mediocre Show. Check them out if you haven't listened to them. I don't know what did you. I feel like I'm just rambling here.
No, and then that's the whole point, that we're here to ramble. And so that's kind of how. Did you actually join the Mediocre Radio Network?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They invited me on there, so I was on there. It was kind of like a collective.
Yeah,
a network. Yeah, a network. I mean, so what was great about it is, you would say, I Am Salt Lake Podcast, part of the Mediocre Radio Network. Go to mediocreradionetwork.com and check out all these other awesome podcasts, and that you could check out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, everybody checks out everybody's podcasts, and at that time, it kind of got eyes on certain people, like Carrie Jackson,
right?
Kind of it
brought you to the forefront of a lot of people.
Well, Carrie knew me probably from going to barbecues with the other Geek Show guys and stuff like that. But by getting the okay, Mike Pilot kind of like, hey, you really need to get on this I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Yeah.
And, they kind of teased me a little bit because Richie T got on before, and they're like,
really?
Well, if our producer got on there before, so they heckled me, but I know it's all out of good fun.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
You got maybe not.
So I got Carrie on the show, and actually Carrie's been on a couple times of the live shows and stuff like that. But so it was really nice to get a boost up.
Yeah, to have the support behind you. From,
again, the Mediocre Show. And I think it's really important to never forget your roots.
Yes.
Another big shout out in the beginning, another big, the City Weekly. I got Best New Podcast in 2012. Well, actually, let me back this up here just for accuracy. Okay. So Gavin, friend of the Gavin, how do you
Gavin
spell it? Sheehan? Am I pronouncing? That was actually the first ever interview that I did with his blog that he does with City Weekly. So when he sends me an email, hey, do you want to go on, you want to get interviewed? I just thought that
I've made it.
Oh yeah. Every time you get interviewed, what? I made it. Everyone in Salt Lake's going to know about me.
Oh,
get 1 million downloads. So then, Gavin had something to do. I don't know how all the politics work over at City Weekly, but it was, thanks to him for getting the podcast recognized and nominated. It got Best New Podcast in 2012.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. I mean, it was such an amazing experience and such an amazing award to win.
Yeah.
And to go to the party and everything. Was really cool.
And so that stuff probably really motivated you to just keep going.
It was. And it kept getting interviews. I got interviewed in Slug, somewhere in the first year, 2 years. I got it on different radio programs and whatnot.
Kind of got to spread the word through different media outlets.
Absolutely.
When you started, you were doing 2 episodes a week.
You want to know why?
Yeah.
Because it goes back. Okay. Because I'm crazy, first of all.
Well, obviously.
So I wanted to grow the podcast. I just wanted to get crazy with it, right? I'm like, let's if we're gonna do this. Okay, so you have to
do it. You're gonna do it all the way.
Okay. I was going to night classes too at this time. I was taking night classes at Salt Lake Community College.
So you were working full time.
I was working full time at the same job that I still work at today.
Wow.
Plus taking night classes. I want to say some semesters I was doing Monday, Wednesday. Do they do Friday? I can't remember. Or Tuesday and Thursday. So I was doing a couple nights of night classes, plus doing a couple nights of podcasts.
Wow.
Plus.
So 0 free time.
I felt like I had free time.
Really?
I don't know.
Wow.
But also at that time, I didn't have a dedicated recording spot.
Yeah.
So I would pack my gear up. I was doing a lot of recordings out of my ex-wife's shop downtown. We were living in Sugar House, so it was a good 15-minute ride to downtown. And it was during a lot of this was during winter time. I remember.
Oh man.
And so I was doing night classes, 2 episodes a week. So anyway, the reason I did 2 episodes a week. Because they're like, do you want all these podcasts that I would listen to? Do you want your podcast to grow? Do as much, do at least 1 episode a week.
Right.
If you could do 2, do 2. So, again, I was listening to a lot of Mark Maron. I was listening to a lot of WTF. So I was like, well, Mark does 2 episodes a week. That means I can do 2 episodes a week.
Obviously.
He can do it. I can do it. So, and you have to remember, I'm booking the people. I'm doing everything here,
Oh yeah,
Krissie.
you're booking.
I'm sending
you're
emails.
Recording.
I'm sending emails.
Yeah.
I'm booking. I'm posting on Facebook.
And then you have to think about the interview questions, interview the person, edit the podcast afterwards.
Edit the podcast afterwards.
Think of intros and outros.
And questions. And that was the thing too. I never interviewed anybody. How do you interview somebody, right?
Yeah.
So, if you go back over the beginning episodes, I talk about this one, for example, like I had a lady who made soap.
Yeah.
Mika was her name, I want to say. And then, so one episode would be about that. The next episode, I had Jason Stock on from Squatters. I mean, 2 different sides of the spectrums.
Right.
How do I know what to talk to them about? So I would start downloading okay, I got to find podcasts about beer. So then I would download these podcasts about beer and I would listen. What are they chatting about? So then I would try to educate myself about beer.
Like you'd become an expert in that thing.
Exactly.
Do you think that helped?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So I was listening to all these different podcasts. And so I was getting ideas on how to podcast too.
Right.
And so I was doing 2 episodes a week and just interviewing them, putting them out there. And it was great because, you bring the people on and then I would say it's 7 out of 10 people would share with their communities.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And so they would share it with them and say, hey, check out this I Am Salt Lake podcast. And so it was growing my audience that way.
Yeah.
And it was great because it was bringing listeners, but I still wasn't really getting a lot of interaction from listeners.
Right.
I was doing it all alone. I'd get an occasional donation. Occasionally someone would PayPal over $5. And I'm like, this is great. This is going to help pay my Libsyn fees. Libsyn,
because you're paying to host
for those that are listening. Libsyn is where we host our podcasts,
right?
Where we host the audio, where because you can't host it on your website. A lot of people don't know this. If I was to host it on my web server, they would shut me down.
Yeah,
because you're getting too many downloads.
Yeah. It's a lot.
And so you have to host it on something like Libsyn or one of those podcast servers. So occasionally I get an email and occasionally this and that, but I wasn't getting it. I was starting to feel very alone.
Yeah.
And at this time, my marriage got a little rocky. I started going through a divorce, and
so you felt extra secluded.
Yeah,
probably.
but then I wanted to hold on to the podcast. I wanted to keep plugging away at it.
Yeah.
And it's still funny because, when I was like, all I want is my podcast equipment. Just don't take my podcasting equipment.
Oh, in the divorce.
In the divorce, I was like, don't take my podcast equipment.
Well, at least you have your priorities straight.
So I moved over. I got this really tiny studio apartment up on A Street, up in the avenues. And if anybody's listening to that, I did a lot of interviews out of there. And it was really tiny. It was probably smaller than this room that we're recording in now. And I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah. Because you're just doing your thing.
I'm a simple guy. I'm not the richest guy in the world. And I bring people over and it's easy to, first of all, I'm just going through a divorce, and so people are just like, oh yeah, you live in a pile of shit. Like you're going through a divorce. I get it. Like you're sleeping on a futon, but I just thought, I didn't think
that's just how people live.
Yeah. I just thought that's how people live. I didn't think, okay, you weren't supposed to sleep on a futon. I thought I was being innovative. Like, oh, look, it could double as a couch. We could kind of put it up here, put it up, put it down, double as a couch. Throw it,
smart.
Throw a sheet, blanket, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I just thought that's what you did.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I'm 35. Was about 35 at the time, and I thought, I didn't realize 35-year-olds lived better than that, and it wasn't like I felt like I was living all that bad. It was just like that was all I needed, right?
Right. You were happy with it.
So the podcast, though, it got me through my divorce.
And I did want to talk
did
a
I
little
jump
bit
ahead
about this.
there?
No. I wanted to bring this up. You and I went to the podcast movement in July.
In Chicago, yeah.
Which was a podcast conference. It was really cool. And Kevin Smith gave a big speech. And he actually talked a lot about how he and a really good friend of his, and we talked to a lot of other people who said if it wasn't for the podcast, they wouldn't have made it through some really hard times. And I found... You
just gave me goosebumps because I've been there.
Yeah. And me too. I mean, if I hadn't had my podcast and comedy when I was going through my divorce, I don't know how I would have... So I find this is kind of a common thread. And I'd like, I just wanted to see like how it helped you and really...
Where do I start? If I know you've gone back and Krissie and gone back and listened to my beginning episodes.
Yes.
And there's a part of me I don't want to leave them up because I feel like there's such a false like the podcast is so different.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. Well, you've grown.
And that's the thing is I feel like I've my confidence levels, my public speaking.
Yeah.
Not that I was ever a bad public speaker. I never, I'd get nervous. I still get nervous when I go up in front of people, but I'd get nervous, but it's so much different.
Yeah. Well, you were a little more timid.
Oh, exactly.
In the beginning.
Exactly. Because I didn't really, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was, I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm bringing so-and-so on. I got to, my equipment doesn't look very good or, I'm not using everything I'm supposed to instead of just being like and owning it and say, you know what, this is what I have.
Yeah.
This is my podcast and I'm proud of it.
Yeah. And you just had to build up the confidence to be comfortable.
Exactly.
With that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I, talking with people, connecting with people, and doing this twice a week. Okay,
Yeah.
You have to think about this. So I was doing this twice a week, and connecting and finding out other people's struggles, and realizing, you know what, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
We're not alone out there. There's other people that are dealing with this. And it was great because, and then also at this time, so you have to, as you go through a divorce, you lose friendships.
You do.
You lose friendships, you lose connections. But the podcast was allowing me to make new friendships.
Yeah.
It was allowing me to make new connections. And so every time I would bring somebody on the show, they would introduce me to somebody else. And it was just this chain effect.
Which is amazing.
But again, it was 2 episodes a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
well, you made friends fast then, right?
Yeah. And so I put some I was starting to get, hesitant. Do I keep putting out 2 episodes?
Yeah.
I don't know. I might jump in. I don't know. Did you have some other questions there?
I'm curious about the progression from the 2 episode to 1 episode and
why it went to 1 episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a couple reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember asking, I can't remember how I worded it. I asked it on Twitter. I said, I'm thinking of going to 1 episode a week, and I got one response from a guy, friend of the podcast. Doesn't matter who it is, but he mentioned he has a hard time keeping up.
Oh, really?
With 2 episodes a week.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I think about my podcast consumption, and I think about the podcasts that I've unsubscribed to that come out daily.
Because it's just too much.
Too much.
Yeah.
Too much. I'll go back occasionally and just download 1 or 2, but it becomes but I listen to a lot of podcasts today.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. But my theory was when I thought of 2 episodes a week, I thought, well, everybody might not want to listen to Monday's episode, so then they would only have to wait a couple days for Thursday's episode.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Because everybody might not want to listen to Yelp, the guy from Yelp, but maybe they want to find out about this food truck,
right,
or this band.
Yeah.
And not realizing, well, you know what? People want to come back week after week because they want to hear me.
Right.
They want to hear, they might want to hear the person being interviewed, but they want to hear me.
Yes.
And so I think it would be a little different story. I would eventually like to get back to maybe a couple episodes a week.
Yeah.
Just because there's so many people here in Salt Lake City to talk to. Which
Can't
is,
even get through
that's
them all.
like the biggest question everybody asks. What are you going to do when you run out of people to talk to? Oh, my gosh.
What are you going to do when you run out of people to talk to?
Well, at that point, we'll probably be on episode 4085.
Or
Then
dead.
we can just bring people back on.
Yeah,
How
there you
about
go.
that? No. You know what I mean? But I mean, I brought people back on. You know, and it's fun.
Which
it's
is totally
fun.
cool. There was one point where you took a break.
I did.
From the podcast.
I took a break. And well, that was actually another reason. Okay, so at this time I was dating. Okay. I got back out there and I tried not to let the divorce tear me up. I mean, there were plenty of dark nights and crying myself. And I'm not trying to belittle it. I mean, I'm an emotional guy. I mean, I didn't want to get divorced.
Right.
That wasn't my plan. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to do all of that. So it was very difficult for me but I was like, okay, I'm about 35 years old at this time. And I realized that I couldn't sit and wallow and sit and even still, there was a part of me that was like, oh, how can I win her back?
Right.
How can I, let's just make it all right. Then because that would be the easiest, right? Just go back because it's a lot easier to meet new people.
It's a lot easier.
It's a lot easier than meeting new people.
Starting over and figuring everything out.
Exactly,
all over
right?
again. Yeah.
Like it's a lot easier to just go back to what you know, even though it's horrible.
Right.
And so anyway, I had to get back out there and doing 2 episodes a week. It cut into my dating life. You know what I mean?
Now we can't let that happen.
No, well, yeah, exactly, right. So you're like, okay, it also got hard because what was happening is people were reaching out to me.
Yeah.
People was, hey, you want to come over to a barbecue? Hey,
Right.
do you want to come over and do this? And it was like, oh, I got to edit a podcast.
So like you finally made friends, but then you didn't have time for them.
Exactly, and people will only ask you so many times before they stop asking
Before
you.
they realize he's not going to come anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let's take a little bit of a break from the podcast. And
Yeah.
I can't really remember. I'd hear about it on podcasts talking about a break, and originally I think, and I was still struggling. I was also starting to get really self-conscious of my studio apartment because there were a few people that made comments about it. Like, oh, you live here? Like, oh, like I can't really remember what they said.
Right.
But kind of like
You just got the feeling.
well, and that's the thing is people don't realize, people can make a comment about somebody else and not really realizing what they're doing
How much it sticks.
and how much it sticks.
Yeah.
And so I became very self-conscious, like, oh, okay, yeah, like maybe this is kind of a shithole that I live in.
Yeah.
And so I started working a lot. I started because, I'm a hard worker. I'm not
Right.
afraid of a hard, and so, the podcast, I wasn't making any money from the podcast.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of, this is what's fun. I had the idea to pay some bills off. It never happened,
Good
right?
intentions.
Well, it never happens, right?
Yeah.
Like some good intentions. I'm like,
Right.
okay, well, because, we all get bills from divorces and stuff starts to pile up. You get depressed, you missed a payment. Blah. You know what I mean? Like
I think we all know how that
Yeah,
feels.
like you're just like, your brain doesn't work right.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'm just going to work hard, focus on work, focus on dating.
Yeah.
Which dating could get expensive too. And so,
That's where your money went instead of bills. I
yeah.
bet.
And so I took a step back
Mm-hmm.
from the podcast. And never my intention to quit it. It was never, but I'm not going to lie. There was a part of me too that was starting to enjoy not having, I was like,
Yeah.
wow, I don't have to put a podcast out.
It's a lot less stressful.
It was. And nobody said anything at first. Nobody said, hey, where's the new podcast episode?
Yeah.
Nobody mentioned anything. A few weeks went by. I got like maybe 1 or 2 tweets.
Yeah.
Like, oh, when are you going to bring that podcast back? I was like, wow, people care.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying right now. If you listen to a podcast, including this one, let me know you listen.
Yeah.
I need to know people care. There's no point
It's
in putting this out
important.
there if nobody's listening. Well, I know people are listening. I could tell, but anyway, so I think what is it, about 6 or 7 months went by of no podcast. And Nick Passy from Folk Hogan started messaging me. And you know, at that time, you know, Folk Hogan has been on the podcast. Moses has been on the podcast individually. Nick Passy has been on the podcast individually. Canyon's been on the podcast. So I've had pretty much all of Folk Hogan. So they were, you know, they were good friends. And they were begging me, Chris, bring this podcast back, even if it's just for us, one time.
Just one more.
One more, because they had a new album coming out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I don't have anywhere to record. You know, we're not doing it. I still lived in the studio apartment, in the shithole.
Not ready to bring people there.
Yeah, I wasn't. And so, well, come over and do it in our recording spot over here at Downtown Music. And again, I apologize for the poor quality of that episode, but it put that bug back in me. And I'm like, all right, I better bring it back, because during this time, people would reach out to me. There were a couple people that reached out to me. They're like, well, do you care if I start putting out podcasts and use the name?
Yeah.
You know, and I was
Didn't you have someone try to buy it from you?
Well, they offered me a few bucks.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I can't do this. I'm like, someone's going to come up and steal the name.
Right.
I got to get my rear in gear, because I was like, I never intended to quit.
Yeah. You just needed a break.
So I brought it back, and very quickly, John Farmer, from over at Utah Musicians Radio, he was getting into a new recording spot as well, and so he said he offered his place to come and use it. Very grateful for him, and I want to say Mark Benson. I might be completely wrong about this, but Mark Benson from Zao was the first interview I did there.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember. I might have it wrong, but
him or around him somewhere.
Well, no. I mean, Mark came on the podcast.
No, that's what I mean. I mean, or around the time you interviewed Mark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, because I was like, oh, Mark, why? You know, I've known you a while, and I mean, Zao has taken off, and I mean, at this time, I think all there was the downtown location.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, because that's such a fascinating story. Go listen to that, because Mark was a great friend during my divorce, and we'd go to urban lounge shows together and hang out, and because, you know, Mark was single at the time, and you know, we'd hang out, and he was telling me, well, we talk about it in the Zao, kind of how that all started, but anyway, I'm rambling. What's your next question, Chris?
I know you have never really wanted to quit, but like, I'm sure there are times where you really felt like quitting.
I do.
Off and on. What motivates you to keep going when you feel that way? I mean, because I know it's hard, but a lot of people don't realize 4 years of a podcast is so much work. And it's so much of your life. It's so much of your life. And it's constant. You have to do it no matter how you feel, no matter if you're having a bad week. You know, people don't realize how much you really put into it. And what's the thing that keeps you going?
Tell me, how would it feel if you cut your leg off right now? You would be lost without it, right?
Probably miss it.
You would miss it, and you would feel lost, and that's how I'd feel if I quit the podcast. What would I do?
It's a part of you now.
What would I do? I you know me, Krissie. I'm not the kind of guy that would sit and I can't watch TV every night.
Nope.
I have to be working on something.
You'd probably just make another project.
And that's the thing, is I would just, you know, you go back to, you know, you talked about the zines I did and the record label I tried to do, and you know, I used to sell vintage clothing on eBay and all different kinds of stuff I used to do. And so it's like, well, you know, maybe this is my break. Yeah. Because, you know, I'm going to say this for the record. I'm not a millionaire from doing this podcast. I've run into people that think I make a lot of money doing I Am Salt Lake. Yeah. And I lose a lot of money. And I guess I hate my day job. I don't care if they're listening right now. I know. I mean, a lot of people tiptoe around that stuff.
It's true.
I've been there for 10 years at my day job. And every day I go and they know I don't belong there. Yeah. They know that I go there because it gives me a paycheck, gives me enough money to pay rent, pay my car payment, maybe take you out to a nice meal. But I want something more. Yeah. And I've always hoped that this podcast would lead me into something more. Yeah. Because I feel like I have something. I feel like
You definitely do.
I have, I have a love of something. We were, you and I were on a podcast recently, and they didn't even understand how I haven't been picked up by a radio station yet.
That's true. They were really baffled.
And I mean, I'm just saying this for the record, because again, a lot of people don't know this. They think, oh, Chris, he probably makes, $100,000 a year from I Am Salt Lake. I don't. And so it's
really more of an investment.
And so that's how I look at it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, it's all for the experience, the live shows I've done and radio spots. And, even just to be comfortable behind this microphone, I have always hoped maybe he'll land me a radio gig.
Yeah.
I have always hoped that. I felt like, well, gosh, this guy's already got 4 years of experience. We don't have to teach him anything.
Yeah. And you have the gift. You have the voice. What's been the most rewarding thing about it? Like, I mean, monetarily, it's not quite the most rewarding, but like, what has filled you with joy?
Meeting people. I mean, even you and I, we probably would have never fully met.
Probably not.
If it wasn't for this podcast. Because I knew about you from comedy. I kind of watched you from a distance. And I was like, oh, Krissie, who's this
And I
Krissie?
knew about you.
Yeah.
But I was too scared to say hi.
And so, when we kind of, we know of each other.
Right.
And when we see each other on, the dating apps of the world, the magical world of Tinder,
yep.
you're going to match up. And so, I mean, meeting people like yourself, I mean, I've met some amazing people.
Yeah.
That I would have never met otherwise.
Yeah.
I would have never really, I mean, I probably would have just, been okay with, like, become one of those people that's okay with his crappy day job and say, well, this is my life. I can go back to school, which I tried. Didn't really work out. I'm not against school. I would definitely go back if I could, but again, it's just time and money.
Yes.
And so
very expensive.
So this podcast has helped me, give me hope for something, because every day I open up my email, I say, well, maybe somebody, and I know I could do better and put myself out there more and reach out to and try to get all these amazing sponsors and I'm hoping, and even with this new office space we have, again, it's tough because again, it's dipping into our pockets.
Right.
And I guess it's like, I want to believe that something magical will happen with this podcast. People love it. I know people love the podcast.
It's a great podcast.
It's a staple of Salt Lake City now, right?
It really is.
I mean, the messages I get of people being like, oh, I message these people, or I tell these people to listen to it. I get emails.
Or people have moved here because they heard your podcast.
Exactly. I mean, I've shared this story of like, I got an email from a guy who was like, I could have been transferred to Salt Lake City or Texas. And he's like, I started, Googling and I found your podcast. So I started listening to all these back episodes, and I said, wow, okay, that's a cool city. I'm going to move to Salt Lake City because of I Am Salt Lake. When you get emails like that, you're like, fuck, I'm doing something.
Yeah.
I'm doing something.
You're really inspiring everyone around you.
Yeah. Like, you're like, my gosh, should I get a commission check from the city here? You know what I mean? Like, where is it? I mean, I'm dead serious, but and so you're making an impact, and there's over almost 250 episodes of this documentation of my life, my journey. Here's a guy who just went out and figured out what kind of recording equipment and documents his journey, chatting with people in Salt Lake City. I mean, it's really quite cool.
It's kind of a remarkable story, and it's amazing that you've been through so much and you've continued, to keep going with it.
Because I've had to pull my bootstraps up, because I'm like, well, you know what? This might be my chance to make something of myself.
Yeah, I think you.
No, and I mean, that makes me sound like I'm this like horrible person, or I haven't. I mean, the thing is if I wasn't doing this podcast, I would probably have continued school. Right?
Yeah.
But I feel like this podcast gives me hands-on with something,
and it's cheaper.
Exactly right. So I figure, whether it's interviewing somebody, maybe it'll lead me into some journalism job.
Yeah.
Whether it's a radio, or maybe something will take off with this podcast, and this podcast will actually make a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Do you like, so now being able to look back, is if you could do it all over again, is there anything you would do different?
What would I do different? I would, I would not be afraid.
Yeah.
To put myself out there more, to send an email to somebody or make a phone call and say, hey, do you want to come on my show? And then they say, well, what show? And you say, you know what? It's the I Am Salt Lake podcast. It's the most awesome podcast in Salt Lake City. You got to be on it. And if you have that attitude versus like, well, you know, it's this podcast I do, and it's kind of cool. I've had a couple cool people on it. I think you might like, you know what I mean? It's all about your presence.
Yes.
It's all about how you put yourself out there and you say, you know what? This is you got to do this. Like, you'd be stupid not to do this. Like, that's the attitude you got to have.
It's, yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. Like right. It's all the way you present it. And I think if I was to go back, I would get rid of fears. And I still struggle with them today. You know this.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I still struggle even something as simple as posting something on Facebook, and I worry about, well, you know what, all these people are going to judge me.
Yeah.
Because there's all these people, they're horrible people.
Well, yeah, people are mean.
Oh my gosh. I hate Facebook.
It's like we never grew up from middle school.
It's like, you didn't spell your right.
They're going to find some reason to call you a jerk or, you know.
I know this isn't a podcast about grammar, but I've never understood that whole thing.
The whole grammar Nazi thing?
Why people need to point out spelling errors.
Yeah, they need to feel superior.
Is that what it is? I don't know.
Maybe their life sucks and that's all they have.
I've never understood those type of people.
I don't know either.
Oh, it's like, no shit. I know how but we're not.
Sometimes you just type fast and you're not thinking.
Is it that big a deal?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, I know that we're not here for we're not a grammar
side rant.
So no, but if confidence, you got to have confidence. You got to believe in yourself. You got to really believe. I think if going into I Am Salt Lake, the podcast, I Am Salt Lake podcast, if I would have just been like, you know what, I'm going to do this, not this like, well, okay, I'll try one more episode.
Yeah,
I'll try one more. Okay,
like
well, this
really
is,
just be more.
This is starting to stick, and it's like, no, you know what, this is awesome. I mean, even down to this office space. Why did it take me 4 years to get into an office space?
Yeah, I don't know.
I gotta believe in myself enough to say, you know what, I'm worth the $300 that it's going to cost me for an office space to pay the $300.
Yeah.
Because finally, after 4 years, I'm saying, you know what, okay, maybe this is worth it.
Right.
Maybe this is worth paying $300 because I do a badass show, and I'm not gonna stop.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like that's gonna.
Well,
really.
I don't want to stop. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I get nervous because, again, it goes back to I still have the same job. It's not the most lucrative job, and so it gets tough. Money gets tight. Money gets really tight.
Oh yeah, and if you don't believe in yourself, how can you expect other people to? Really, at the end of the day, is that kind of do you think that would be the advice you would give people who want to really get out there and start something? Do
it. Don't question it.
Yeah.
Do it. Just
jump
do
before you think.
Just do it, because you gotta. Granted, every idea, it might not be the best idea, I guess. I mean, but nobody's going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to believe in your product. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that they gotta buy it. They gotta wear it. They gotta put it on, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And just get out there and try it, because what's the worst that's going to happen?
People will say no.
Or you go on there, and you know what? A lot of people said no in the beginning.
Oh, I bet.
I had a lot of no-shows in the beginning. I had a lot of people that canceled on me 5 minutes prior.
Really?
But you know what? I pulled my bootstraps up and I said, all right, let's keep doing this. Let's keep doing this. And then I realized, you know what? Let's do some interviews. Let's put some interviews in the bank. Stockpile a little bit.
And that's how you probably learned, I should probably record ahead of time.
You know what I mean? So I'll have 4 or 5 interviews in the bank.
Yeah.
In the can, so to speak. And so, because people are going to cancel.
Right. And people don't realize sometimes when you do a recording, it's going to take a few weeks.
Exactly. And I feel bad. There's a lot of times I feel bad for people, because they'll be like, oh, it's not going up right away. It's like, well, you know what? You guys did this to yourself. You canceled on me.
A couple of people ruined it for the whole team.
Exactly. This is why we can't have nice podcasts in Salt Lake.
Pretty much.
No, I mean, but seriously, it works better that way when you have a few episodes in the can. If I go out of town, which is rarely, but
you at least can keep things out there.
Exactly.
What are your future dreams for the podcast, and like yourself in general? Like,
honestly, I would, and the thing is I could see it happening with I would like to do I Am Salt Lake full time.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that out there. And I don't think that's a bad goal. I don't think I should be made to feel like I'm a bad person.
I don't.
I think there's been people along the way that makes you feel bad.
Some people that
makes
you
you feel like, you should just do it because you love it. And the thing is, I do love it.
Right.
But the problem is a lot of times, like I'll go to work and I'll work, 10 hours. Mm-hmm. And it'll be 100 degrees because it's summertime, and I'll be working outside.
Yep.
And I'll be hot and exhausted, and it's like, yeah, an interview would be fun, but I'm tired.
Yeah,
I don't have it in me.
Dehydrated.
I'm dehydrated, so it's like I wish I could just focus all of my attention on this show. Mm-hmm. I wish I could just, because that's the thing is I had dreams from the, I've talked about this. You've heard me.
Yeah.
Audio walking tours in Salt Lake.
Yes.
I'd love to do video content, tons of video content. Mm-hmm. I would love to do, we've talked about doing blog posts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to create an app. I would love to do more photo walks. I would love to.
There's so much content to be created about Salt Lake.
I would love to do more live shows.
Yeah.
I would love to do, but I can't do it all. Because I don't have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
And so there is so much to create. There are so many more people to talk to. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would love, how cool would it be to have this show on some local radio station?
Yeah.
Every week you can hear it live on a radio station.
That would be awesome.
Whether it's me interviewing the people, I go into a radio station and I Am Salt Lake is on, and one of the, local radio stations pick it up. Maybe I have a TV show. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many possibilities.
I'd watch it.
Well, I think a lot of people would watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing. I want to say this before I don't know what other questions you have, but the community, I've noticed this community coming out recently over the last year, even.
Yeah.
The I Am Salt Lake, I like to call him Team Charles, for Charles.
Hashtag Team Charles.
The Sphinx Cat. But you guys have kept me going. I mean, the people that have been reaching out, coming out, saying they enjoy the shows, the iTunes reviews, the retweets, the people that, hey, I listen to your podcast. I mean, that's what's keeping me going right now.
It means a lot.
And so it's been really cool. It's been really cool, this community that I've built up, or that you've even been a big part of.
I'm jumping on the
recently
tail end here.
But yeah, man, I couldn't imagine my life without this. There's a part of me that I get nervous to think about not having this. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like if it was to go away, it'd be like a bad divorce.
Yeah,
I think I would get a little sad.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure you would feel like a piece of you is missing.
Like I said, that leg.
Yeah.
That leg missing.
So let's make sure to keep it going. Right?
Anyway, what's your next? You got any other questions there for me, or is that it?
Well, podcast related, those are the rest of the questions.
Okay.
You do ask some questions to people I want to throw back at you.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
What is the most random thing you have watched all the way through on Netflix? Or have you ever watched anything all the way through?
Well, back in the day, I used to smoke a lot of weed and watch Netflix and just veg for hours.
Do you remember what you watched?
The most random thing I watched on Netflix. You know what I really like? This isn't really random, but one thing I really like on Netflix is those really weird reality shows where it shows like people that are like, they eat like they eat like paint particles.
People that eat rocks or something.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I found those people so fascinating because they make me feel so good about myself.
That's true.
Because I'm like, I'm not that crazy.
Or like the girl who likes to pretend she's furniture. Have you seen that one?
No. But
oh, me neither.
You know what I mean? But I'm like, you know what? I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm all right. So, but as far as random, I mean, I know I asked that question and it's a great question. But I wish I had more time for TV. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I do enjoy TV. I'm not like one of those nuts like burn your TV.
That's good.
But,
that's good.
No, I mean, I like TV. Yeah.
You like TV? Do you have a most memorable concert that you've ever been to?
most memorable concert I've ever been to was probably seeing Ryan Adams at the Disney Amphitheater in Los Angeles. The acoustics, the sound, oh my gosh, it was, and Val Kilmer actually opened up for him.
What? Wait, did he sing?
No, he did some kind of spoken stuff, if I remember correctly.
Weird.
But, yeah, so.
That's interesting. I need to check out Ryan Adams someday with you.
Oh my gosh, favorite musician.
Let's say someone is going to be visiting Salt Lake City. They only have one day here. What would you tell them to check out?
Well, I would tell them to probably start in the morning getting a Alberto's breakfast burrito.
I can vouch for that.
Get one of those. Take it over to Liberty Park. Go sit on a park bench for a little while. If you have kids, let them run around on the swings or because I'm imagining this is like a summer day. So they're going to sit at Liberty Park while they're eating their burrito. And then after they're done, maybe walk around a little bit. Go check out the boats at Liberty Park. Maybe go ride the Ferris wheel or the swings. Maybe just say hello to a random homeless person. After that, maybe get in your car, catch a Lyft or an Uber, however the mode of transportation is, and maybe cruise it on up, say to the 9th and 9th area. Walk up there, have your Uber or Lyft drop you off, find a parking. Check it out. Check out some of the cute little shops in that area. And then from there, maybe grab a Lyft or an Uber and then head on down to downtown, where maybe you can have them drop you off close to the library, downtown library. Depending on what time it is, if it gets too hot, you don't have to go up to the top quite yet. But check out the many floors. I mean, the glass elevator.
It is a cool library.
All the books. Maybe hop on the internet, check your email, whatever. Depends on how much time. Make it up to the top, though. You got to check out the beehives up there.
Yeah.
The bees. Go check out the views. Then maybe from there, depending again, I mean, it's probably getting kind of late. You're probably getting kind of thirsty. Walk a couple blocks north. You're going to be over at the beer bar.
Yeah.
Bar X is right next door. Maybe grab a drink.
Yeah.
Maybe you're hungry at this point. Depends on what you want for dinner. You can walk back another block back over. You can grab some food from Spitz.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe grab some of their fries, some of their street cart fries, or one of their donor wraps. And then after you're done with that, maybe walk across the street to Junior's, grab yourself another beer, and then from there, maybe grab an Uber and head back to your hotel, wherever you're at. But that's probably what I would do if I told somebody to visit Salt Lake for just a day.
It actually sounds like a really nice day.
Yeah.
There it is, the Chris Holifield endorsed tour of Salt Lake City.
That was just one of many. I mean, maybe if you could sneak in a Lucky 13 in there for a burger, you know what I mean? You could
that
go,
does sound like a nice day,
you can go that route, or I'm a big fan of Zest.
Yes.
Down there. I mean, so there's a few restaurants that I was slipping.
You can mix it up.
But I really think people, if you're visiting Salt Lake City, you have to check out we don't have the most amazing bar scene in the world, but I think we have a pretty cool one.
Yeah.
And try some of our local beers if you can. We have some great local beers. Give them a try.
Yeah. I like that. All right. Is there anything that you would change about Salt Lake City?
Well, the biggest question people say about our liquor laws, but I'm actually not even a big fighter. I think our liquor laws are fine.
Yeah.
No, take that back. Strike that, burn it, whatever. They do need changing.
Right.
But everybody is so quick to say our liquor laws are horrible. But you know what? I lived in Pennsylvania for 5 years. They got screwy liquor laws there too. You have to you have to buy your beer from bars, and they have state run liquor stores too. And
yeah. So we're not the only ones.
No, they call them Packy. Well, no, Packy's is Massachusetts, I think. But no, I didn't really drink much of Pennsylvania, so I didn't really. But they have all state run there too. But what would I change about Salt Lake City? You know what the biggest thing I think I would change if I could, and it's the people's attitude. I think it's getting better. There's a lot of people that talk here about these great ideas. Oh, let's do this. But nobody follows through.
Yeah. Well, following through is the hard part.
And I'm sure it's the way in any city.
Yeah.
But I think if everybody, maybe not every idea. I realize not every idea needs follow through, but imagine if everybody would get out with an idea and they would run with it.
Yeah.
How magical this city would be.
It would be amazing.
And another thing I would change is, if I could change something, public transportation. I think we need better public transportation, believe it or not. I think we need cheaper. It needs to be a little bit cheaper and a little bit better. I mean, Tracks and Front Runner is great, but that's just running north to south.
Right.
We need some amazing, and I mean, I guess we go up to the
maybe.
U, but I just don't think it's really all that accessible. So maybe public transportation. I mean, I'm sure there's a list. And I'm sure I'm getting, people freaking out at me saying they're going to quit listening to the podcast because I'm not talking about the big problems like our air quality and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I realize these are big problems. You know what I mean? Air quality and stuff like that. But I think Salt Lake City's come a long ways. I mean, look at. I mean, it's an incredible city.
It is.
And so to say, what do I want to change? I think I wish it would change a little faster.
Yeah, you can see it changing.
You know what I mean? I see, even down to, you go to certain areas and roads being widened and you're like, you get excited because you're like, this means they're predicting growth.
Right.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it scares me. The cost of living downtown is going up. And that makes me scared because I don't want to see, I think it's getting harder and harder for people to even just live by themselves.
Yeah.
You need a roommate. When you're 35, 39 like myself,
you don't want to have to get a roommate.
You don't want a roommate. And so it makes me scared. Stuff like that makes me scared. I mean, I think that, but it's a payoff to have a big city. I think Salt Lake City's
the growth is
explode.
contributing to it.
And I love that. All these people say, no, you don't want to move here, to try to keep people. I want people to move here. I want people to move here. I want this city to get so big that everybody can prosper.
Yeah.
We need new blood here. We need new ideas.
So everybody go out and make something.
So, but
I like those answers.
I don't know.
I like those answers.
Do you want me to? Do you have more questions, or can I say a few words?
You may please say a few words.
Or I did. Well, I know you're interviewing me, but I want to.
I know.
There's a few.
You have some things you'd like to say.
I want to wrap this up and kind of say that. I told myself I wouldn't cry. And I told myself that I wouldn't get emotional. But there's been a lot of people that have supported me along the way and believed in me. And they know who they are. I don't want to sit here and say names and I don't want to leave anybody out because I know who they are, but my mind is going a million miles an hour right now. And, that telling somebody that you believe in them could go a lot further than some people might even realize. And the support from people that I received has meant more to me than anything. So thank you. I really can't. You know who you are. People listening and out there in the internet world and podcast land. Thank you. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for doing such a great job for everybody in Salt Lake. And thanks for coming on and talking to us about it.
Hey, thank you. 4 years.
4 years.
Here's to another 4 years,
Four
right?
more years.
4 more years.
4 more years.
Hey, you know what? Maybe I'd have a good chance if I ran for president, right?
I might be. I think that may be a good option, actually.
All right, guys. Hey, we'll end it there or what?
Yep, we'll end it there. Go out and love the city you live in.
Love the city you live in and yeah, guys. Good night.